Okay, we will start. Every time we have to pay our respects to the technology before we start. Om Yasmat Jatam Jagat Sarvam Yasmin Yeva Praliyate Yenedam Dharyate Chaiva Tasmai Jnanatmane Namaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Beda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Taitiriyakasarasya Mayacharya Prasadataha Vispashtartaruchinam hi Vyakyeyam sampraniyate. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Brahmavida apnoti param tadesha bhyukta satyam jnanamanantam brahma yo veda nihitam guhayam parame vyoman Soshnute sarvan kamaan saha brahmana vipaschiteti tasmadva etasmad atmana akasha sambhutaha akashat vayuhu vayoragnihi agnerapah adbhyah prativi Prativya oshadhayah oshadhibhyonnam annat purushah sava esha purushonnarasamayah tasyedameva shirah ayam dakshinah pakshah ayam uttarah pakshah Ayamatma idam pucham pratishtha tadapyesha shloko bhavati. So we are still in the first Anuvaka. So we have spent a lot of time on Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam and Brahma, which is a sort of an explanation to this sutra, Brahmavitapnoti param. One who knows Brahman knows everything. So that is the sutra for the entire Upanishad. So the Upanishad tries to explain it, because sutras are always so cryptic. So in trying to explain it, we came to the next sentence, which is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That's what we saw, Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam and so on. Now the Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, the Upanishad, in fact the rest of the Upanishad is only explaining this. So this is the structure in Brahmanandavalli. There is a sutra, Brahmavida apnoti param, that's all, full stop, over, the whole teaching is over. Now since it is a cryptic sutra, then there are 3 sentences quoted from Rig Veda. Tadesha bhyukta, it is said thus. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, all those are there. Now the rest of Brahmanandavalli only explains it even more. That's how the structure is. So now the Upanishad, the Shruti, moves to the next step. It says, how do I explain this Satyam Jnanam Anantam? Brahman is nothing but Satyam Jnanam Anantam. So that is where the explanation starts now. Most part of the Brahmanandavali is there. So it gets into this central theme of how do you get this Ananta. Now, look at it logically. We will come to this later. If something is Anantam, if something is endless, no beginning, no end, let's understand it logically. If something is Anantam, it is as good as saying it is Advitiyam, it is Advaitam. Because if there is a second item, then the first item is limited now. We are now talking limitlessness. So Anantam actually means Advaitam. There cannot be a second piece. If there is a second piece, that means we have now seen a limitation now. Second item is seen only when the first item is finished. First item is over. Moment you say the first item is limited, then this definition is now in trouble. So in a way, Satyam Jnanam Anantam, the notion of Brahman, it has to be demonstrated as one single entity which is pervading everywhere. So the Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, which are the three components of definition for Brahman, says it should be all pervading, it should be non-dual, and it should be non-perishing. Only then this is possible, otherwise it is not possible. It has to be non-dual, all pervading, and indestructible. In fact, all the Upanishads have handled this. This has directly said that. The other Upanishads are saying it indirectly. This nailed it straight by saying Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. So that is how the explanations start. So now, if you practically start looking at this idea that Brahman is, there is nothing second, everything is Brahman, then there are two things which challenges us. The two things are, we see the world now. There is this world. So that is not gelling with this idea. We see duality, we see Aneka, Nanatva, it's called Nanatva. So you are seeing many now. Because the world is full of all kinds of things, so this is the one which will challenge us first. We have to reconcile this. Otherwise, this idea of this conceptual idea that Anantam means it should be only one is only a conceptual idea. But we see the world of multiplicity, we see trees, we see nice buildings, we see good number of people here, we see table, chair, we see the camera and whatnot. This has to be reconciled now. Otherwise, we are in trouble. So Shruti has actually wanted to work on that first. The Upanishad actually wants to address that first. Now the second is, even if you take an individual, you for the moment forget the world. You take the individual, you see a lot of differences in us only. I don't even go to the second. In me I see differences. I look different some time back. I have distinguishable marks on me. Again I have to reconcile this. So this is what the Shruti has squarely entered into. It wants to establish the Anantam, which is Satyam, Jnanam and Anantam, saying that it is non-dual and all-pervading, by saying a real sadhaka will be challenged by these two. He will not know how to reconcile it with the world. Something has to be done about it. If you can reconcile that, then you will ask, within me I see problems now. So that also has to be reconciled now. So these are two major arguments going forward. So we just started it last class. The first argument, which is understanding the prapancha, understanding the Jagat. Jagat is so varied. And here we are saying the Brahman is non-dual. So we will have to. So in Vedanta, in all the Upanishads and Brahma Sutra and all these, what we find, there is one powerful argument they put forth. I call it as Karya Karana Viveka. There is a fundamental paradigm called Karya Karana Viveka. Many things can be reconciled and understood with the paradigm called Karya and Karana. If I have to approximately translate it into English, it is cause and effect. The Karana is the cause, the Karya is the effect. So Vedanta, this literature, the Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, the Vedantic literature holds on to this pillar called Karya Karana Viveka and tries to explain to us, uses it in a way it tries to tell us how to actually. So what will this Karya Karana Viveka will do? It will do the following. First of all, it will try to explain why are differences manifesting. See, our worry is, on one hand we say Ananta, non-dual, but we see so much of variety. It has to be reconciled. It has to be explained. So the first thing that it will do is, it will explain how the signs of the differences that really manifest in front of us. That's one. So it will explain, it will reconcile. Now it's not only about explaining, in the process of explaining we have to reconcile the differences. We should say A and B and C and D are all same, and you have to show it in a particular way. So you have to reconcile the differences. And what it also does, it resolves this confusion that we have by changing the level of resolution. It changes the level of resolution. Instead of putting a 10x, it puts a 1000x. It gets you to another level, and through that it tries to explain to you, look at it from this level, you will stop seeing the differences. So it changes the resolution with which we have to see, right? And by doing all these, it will eventually lead us to that primordial cause, which is Sat, which is the Satyam. This is what this Karya Karana Viveka, that argument always does. Let's take one shloka from Bhagavad Gita, because I was thinking about it. One shloka came to my mind. Let's look at that shloka in chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita. He says, Ye chaiva satvika bhavaha rajasas tamasascha ye matta eveti tan viddhi natvaham teshu te mai. That is the crux of the statement, the last part. The first part explains the manifestation, the RGB of differences, which comes from Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. That is the color palette with which you bring the differences. So he says, all of them are coming from me. Krishna says, all of them are coming from me, but then he makes a very important final statement. That is, Na tu aham teshu. I am not in that, but they are in me. It's a very strange statement. It says, I am not in that, but they are in me. It looks like a jugglery of words. Because what is the big difference by saying this one way or the other? This is a question which will come. Why do you say? Basically what Krishna is saying is, understand Karya and Karana. This is what he is saying. To take an example, we talked about it last class. I am only revisiting it again. You can get me a wooden chair. You can get me a wooden table. You can get me a whole world of wooden items. What Krishna is saying is, the items are in the wood is not in the items. This is what he is saying now. Now you have to understand this statement. He says, wood is the Karana. Furniture is a Karya. This desk is a Karya. This lectern is a Karya. Wood is the Karana. What does he mean by that? He says, you can remove the wood from here. Furniture will lose the existence, wood will remain. If you remove all the thread from a shirt, there is no shirt anymore. Thread will remain, shirt is gone. If you melt all the ornaments, ornaments will go. Gold will remain. In other words, the inherent existence is called Karana. The shapes, names and shapes, Nama Rupa that you see are changing in nature. The golden stud, the golden bangle and a necklace and a ring is Karya. It is not Karana. The Karana is gold, that lump of gold. That's why he says gold will have independent existence Golden bangle can never have an independent existence outside of gold. We understand it. A plastic chair cannot have an independent existence outside of plastic. If you remove all the plastic from a plastic chair, plastic will remain, chair will go. So a wooden table cannot have an independent existence without, that is what he is saying here. That's why he is saying all those objects are in me. In other words, he says you destroy all of them, I will still be there.
Like the waves in the ocean.
Like the bubbles. Bubbles, why do you go up to the waves? That smoky small little bubble and the ocean. The bubble will come and burst. The bubble lends its existence from the water. Water is a more permanent thing. So that is called Karya Karana Viveka. So Upanishad actually says that Brahman is the Karana. The Jagat is the Karya. Which means you can take the Jagat. In chapter 8 you will find Abrahma Bonan Lokan Punaravartino Arjuna. It says everything will, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam. Another shloka is there. It says 1000 yugas I will fold everything. Which means all these Jagat is not there. They don't have independent existence. They become, in fact chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita it says Abhyaktani cha bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata. This manifestation, no manifestation, again manifestation are all Karya. The Karana is the Sat. The existence. People say, chair is there, table is there, this is there, that is there. The Is is the existence. That isness that is being supplied to the world of existence, that isness is the Sat. That cannot go. Can destroy the chair. The notion of chair is an inherent existence which was created. That will never get destroyed. That Sat of that will never get destroyed. So the Upanishad now what it is doing, it is actually taking this clue. It is taking this idea. It says, let me show you that how Brahman is the Karana and the world of dualities and multiplicities that you see are nothing but Karya. So in all the Karya cannot independently exist. They exist because of me. That's what he is also saying here. Natvaham teshu te mai. They are all in me, I am not in them. In other words, he says, I am the superset, that is the subset. A subset has to fold into the superset. A superset will not fold into the subset. That is the meaning. Mathematically, if you look at it, set theory, that is what it is trying to suggest. So that is what Upanishad is doing. It is now saying that the world that you are talking about. Now let us not go to the world. Look at simple chemistry. One way to understand chemistry is to, see, everything is chemistry at the end of the day. This has chemistry in it. So one level you can say, the chemical properties of a steel is different from the chemical properties of a wood, is different from the chemical properties of a polymer item, polyethylene, high density polyethylene and so on. That is at one level. Now you can go to the next level. Next level is you can split it into 102 elements, basic elements. The Grigor Mendele's table and all that. We can say, hydrogen, helium, argon and krypton and all that. We can say, chlorine, sodium. Basic chemistry says that is another level of resolution. So now I can analyze this steel piece in terms of calcium, iron, this, that and so on. We have now gone to the next level of resolution. One can go to another level of resolution. You can even go to the level of saying it is nothing but 1p, 2c, 3d, something there. All these are there. It is nothing but these electrons are all going around something. There is a neutron, there is some set of positrons and electrons are running. You can go to that level. Now they have even split that and gone to even the subatomic particle level. So our understanding of reality is conditioned by our ability to bring a lens with a certain resolution. That's all. So at one level we can say you are different from me, chair is different from table, table is different from light, light is different from electricity, electricity is different from water. You can say all that. That is one level. Now in the Upanishad it says, I will take you to the highest level, that just like you say any world of physical objects can be finally reduced to subatomic particles and pions and mesons and so on. Finally everything is made of that, including the air, gas, liquid, everything can be written with these basic particles. In the same way, The Jagat with all its Nama and Rupa, with all its so-called manifestations, are actually emanating from that Brahman. So the oneness is now preserved. Please understand. The oneness is the Karana. What you see is the Karya. This is what the Upanishad is attempting, which we saw that in the last class. We'll see it in a little more. Every Upanishad discusses this. So I want to bring Chandogya and Mandaka Upanishad and show how they are saying the same thing. So this is where we stopped. Tasmadva etasmad atmana akasha sambhutah. Tasmadva, from that. Etasmad atmana, from this also. It wants to connect the anda and the pinda with the same element. That's why it is pointing to both. It is pointing to vyashti and the samashti both. That's why he says tasmadva etasmadva atmana. Because this is the only way you can explain the second sentence which we saw. It said, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman. You know it in the outside, also inside. So you have to know it in Samashti and Vyashti, Anda and Pinda. That's why it brings both the statements here. Tasmatva, Etasmatva Atmanaha. From these only came. What came? Akasha Sambhutaha. It says the first element called Akasha came, which is the subtlest of the reality that one can think of. Then it said Akashad Vayuhu, Vayoho Agnihi. So from the gas, the fire and all that. Agnehe Apaha, Adbhyah Prithvi. And these are all and. We have to remember that. So that's what I showed in the next table. So basically it is explaining the pluralistic phenomenon as an endless variety of the combinations and manipulations of these five great elements. At the end of the day, it is these five great elements which combine to create this world of multiplicity, and that five great elements come from me. Therefore the Anantam is now established. It is all a question of what level of resolution with which you want to understand it. It's up to us, is what he is saying. So Akasha, first it is Akasha, and from Akasha you get this first Tanmatra called Shabdam. The reflection has to happen only in a space. That's why the first Tanmatra is Shabda, which is the subtlest. Then Vayuhu, because for gas to pervade you need space. So space is the first thing that you need, in which the gas has to pervade now, fill in. So that's why the Vayu requires both Akasha and Vayu. These are all and. Please remember, these are all and. For Vayu you need a space. Without space there is no notion of Vayu. And so Sparsha and Shabda. Vayu also makes a Shabda. Sometimes the blowing of the air we are able to hear. Right? So Shabda and first time you feel is only the air. Shabda and Sparsha. Then Vayoha Agnihi, the right gaseous mixtures, the carbon dioxides and the oxygens of the world and hydrogens and heliums of the world bring your fire. If you want to use chemistry to explain it. So you need space and gaseous system to get the fire. That's the third. Fire has Shabda. Fire also sometimes when it rages, there is a noise to it. It has Shabda. It can produce Sparsha. Touch and see, what Sparsha means for a fire. And of course, for the first time you get a Rupa. For the flame creates the notion of Rupa first. So all the three are added. Rupam plus Sparsham plus Shabdam comes through the third Tanmatra. Then comes Apaha. Because without fire, this whole great recycling of water is not going to happen. Condensation is an important principle of creating water. Water is a very recycling kind of idea, for which fire is very important. Without fire, water will be lost in finite time. It is the fire which is consuming, evaporating and then distilling it in a different format. So they are all related to one another. That's why you have Apaha. And it has Shabdam, it has Sparsham, it has Rupam, it has the notion of taste comes only with the liquid system. Apaha is a beginning. Basically it talks about the liquid system. Water is the first most dominant representative of the class. We are saying the liquid system starts. After the gaseous system, you have the fire and then the liquid system. Rasa, the notion of taste starts. Then comes Prithvi, which is a numerous combination of all these elements. It is a combination of gas and liquid and all that which makes solid at the end of the day. So that is what it is. So that's why you have the last item, which is Prithvi, which is Gandha. The notion of smell comes only with the, even a smell in a water is because of some suspended particle which is solid. Pure water cannot smell. A suspended particle is the source of smell in a water also. So that is how the 5 enabling features the Upanishad introduces. It looks very scientific also. As I was telling, they go to Mars, this is the order in which they check. First they explore the space. They say, how is this space look like? Then they say, what kind of, is it has gases? Then they look for, because without that the next will not have. This is exactly what they do with Moon and Mars and Jupiter. This is what their modern science is doing. Exactly what the Aitra Upanishad is saying in that order, that they are actually doing. Then, so far it creates the 5 basic elements. Then the Upanishad says, with this now you can create anything. But contextually, for the rest of the discussion in the Upanishad, it could have taken anything. It has taken the unit of analysis of an individual. That's why you say it moves from Prithvi to Oshadi. It says Prithivyam Oshadayaha, Vanaspatayaha also. The entire, the productive earth is a requirement for the entire plant kingdom to thrive. And the plant kingdom is required for the animal kingdom to thrive. Without plant kingdom, animal kingdom cannot thrive, because all food cycles start with what you call as the food cycle starts only with vegetarian. Then only it gets herbivorous only becomes carnivorous and omnivorous and all that. So it's all the primordial food cycle starts only with plant kingdom. So it talks about Oshadi. Oshadi means herbs. Vanaspati is bigger trees. So I have just added Vanaspati also. Oshadi means Vanaspati also. Basically it says the whole plant kingdom comes, which provides food. Oshadibhyonnam, the entire food, primordial source of food comes from the plant kingdom. That is, the food cycle starts there. So it says Oshadibhyonnam Annat Purusha. So it has taken only one path. The 5 fundamental elements, great elements, can create Jada and Chit, anything. Because the Upanishad is going to discuss in a particular direction, it has taken one path out of it. So by no stretch of imagination, this is not the only path. The 5 great elements are the enabling features of Prapancha. That's why it's called Prapancha, na? Prapancha. The world is Prapancha. It is nothing but a combination of 5. So out of that it says Oshadibhyonnam Annat Purushaha. So it has led the creation process. So it is a creation process. All Upanishads talk about creation process, because only through a creation process you can introduce the Ananta idea. That's what in Bhagavad Gita also it said Urdhva Mulo Atashaka Prahuravyayam Chandamsya Etsra Parnani. All the Yoveda, one who knows that. So primordial thing starts really from the top. So all Upanishads talks about this creation process. So it has taken a particular route here.
This Purusha is a physical thing.
So yes, no. The Purusha here, yes. Thanks for pointing. The Purusha here, see, the words are all to be contextually understood. Purusha in a Sankhya system means something. There Purusha and Prakriti has a different meaning. In Purusha Sukta, that Purusha has a meaning. Here the Purusha means the physical body, because it has led us up to that. Because the Sukshma Sharira, the Karana Sharira does not come through food. It comes through in a particular way. It uses it as a medium. But here in the context, the Purusha is pointing to the Stula Sharira. Because the Upanishads wants to start from the creation process and come unto you and show it to you that Brahman is creating all that. In that process you also came. Within you also I am there. Then only you can say Parame Vyoman Nihitam Guhayam. That's why it is bringing both the arguments slowly. So that's what it is doing here. So this is from this Vidyaranya's famous Panchadashi. He wrote 15 chapters. One of these is the two brothers who became the, Vijayanagar, they abandoned the kingdom, became, Shankaracharyas of Sringeri. So that is the Panchadashi is theirs, right? 15 chapters. The second chapter is called Panchamahabhuta Vivekam. So I naturally got interested. I remember, so I started little bit reading it, and he has explained it nicely. How the 5 elements are cumulative. He says in a particular way. We said the 5 elements are cumulative. So you see how he is saying. He says pratidvanihi, reflection of sound, for which you need space. Without space, sound does not travel. Without the sound that you get is only reflection in your eardrum. What is sound? It is reflection of some waves. It has to travel in a space and hit on something. That is called sound. That's what he says. Pratidvanihi vishaya shabdaha. Right? So moment you say you have to reflect, the space is implied there. You need a space for the wave to reflect. So that's what he implies there. So that's the first tanmatra, brings only one item called sound. Then he says, Vayav visiti shabdanam. He says, it makes a sound. Visi. I mean, he uses a particular word. He says, when the sound, air blows, it creates a sound. So, visiti shabdanam. And then it says, Vayu also what it does? Anushna shita samsparsham. He says, the air by itself is neither cold or hot. The cold or hot is carried through the air actually. Air is not heat. We say air is hot. It's not air hot. Air is a carrier. It carries something which is either hot or cold. And so he says air by its nature is neither cold nor warm, but it blows. That's what he says. It will touch you. You will feel. Samsparsha is what he is saying. Then he comes to the Vanhav, which is the Agni. Vanhav bugu bugu dvanihi. He says when it really, the flames are in big, it is a sound it comes, he says. Bugu bugu dvanihi. Okay? Ushna sparsha. Now he brings the feel also. The fire, when it grows, it brings the notion of heat. That sparsh is heat. So it includes sound, it includes touch, because you feel the heat. That's what it is touching you. Then it says Prabha Rupam. The brightness is its form. The flame is what? A counter of brightness. What is flame? Flame is a counter of brightness that you see. So Rupa, Shabda and Sparsha. All the 3 are included now. Then he goes to next. He says Jale balu balu dvanihi. Bulu bulu dvanihi. He says water when it flows it makes a sound like that. Okay? Bulu bulu dvanihi. Shita sparshaha, water is cold, chill, so it touches you. You feel it. So it brings the element of feeling also. Sparsha is also part of the water is what he is saying. Why? You feel the coolness, na? Shita sparshaha, shukla rupam. He says it is white. I have not understood why he calls it pure water. He says it is white. Water is colorless. So I don't know what exactly means by white. He says shukla rupam. Then he says raso madhuryam. Pure water is some notion of sweetness. So madhuryam, rasa. First time you feel that. So shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa. All the 4 are come. Then he says bhumau kadakata shabdaha. Solid piece will kadakata sound will come. So that's the word he uses. Bhumau kadakata shabdaha. Katinyam sparsham. The hardness is the feel that you have when you talk of solid. There is a hardness. That's a feeling. So he says Shabda is there, Sparsha is there, right? Neeladikam Chitra Rupam. It has its own property. It looks brown, it looks blue, it looks bright, it looks dirty, it looks bright. Something is there. Rupa is there. You see, recognize the shape like that. Madhuramlikadiko Rasaha. So it starts giving all kinds of taste. The 6 different tastes will come. Some can be sour, some can be sweet, some can be whatever. Solid particles can throw that kind of a taste. The world of taste has joined now, right? Then surabhitara gandhau dvau gunaha. Either bad smell, good smell, all kinds of smell have also joined now. The smell comes for the first time only when you have solid particles. So he says that also. Surabhita gandhau dvau gunaha. right? Both either this smell or that smell, all both kinds of things are can happen. Samyak vivechita. So he uses this example in his beginning shloka itself. He says, understand it is and. Please understand, it is not they are mutually exclusive. Every tanmatra requires the previous all tanmatras for it to get enabled. Remember this. So that's what he nicely brought it through this shloka. Now let's look at a few Upanishads in which it talks about this whole process of creation. This has been a central theme in all Upanishads, major Upanishads, dealt in detail. Right? So he says here in Mundaka Upanishad, it says, it's a very famous shloka, nice shloka, mostly misunderstood shloka. Look at this shloka, because this is the bane of current understanding and thinking and Western way of reading everything by cutting it into pieces, understanding the meaning. You will never get the meaning in this shloka. Look at this shloka, you need Gudhartha here. It says, Agnir Murda Chakshushi Chandra Suryau Disaha Shrotre Vag Vivritascha Vedaha Vayuhu Pranaha Hridayam Vishwamasya Padbyam Prithivihi Esha Sarva Bhutantaratma. It's a very ancient Indian wisdom is hugely metaphorical. You cannot make sense of just reading the English translation. Yeah, I'll do the English translation. It says Agnihi Murda, the temple is fire. Then first question you'll ask is, will it burn off? How can you have fire here? First let us understand the simple English, because I want to tell you, because this is the mistake people do. It says Agni Murda. The temple portion is Agni. And then it says Chakshushi Chandra Suryo. Now the question comes, first of all, we cannot accept that the eyes are sun and moon. Even if you accept, you will ask, is the right eye sun or left eye sun? Now if you take Soma Surya Agni Lochana, you have 3C1 combination. Where is Agni, where is Surya, where is Chandra? This is all analytical mind can do. Analytically, if you understand, our thinking will go only like that. And Westerners, that's why they laugh at this literature, because they don't understand how to make sense of it. It says Agnihi, Chandra Surya Netrao. Two eyes are sun and moon. Dishaha Shrotraha. These primordial Brahmans, his ears are nothing but directions. I have now lost sense of what do you mean by ears becoming directions. Because direction has no form, shape, you cannot limit it, you call it as ear now. The two ears are directions. That's what the shloka says. Right? Vag Vivritascha Vedaha. The entire stated Vedas are nothing but its speech. So like that it goes. Now let us try to decipher this issue. These are all we have to understand very deeply. Now let us take Chakshushi Chandra Suryo. You can even take Soma Surya Agni Lochana. We'll put all the three to make confusion even more. Now we have to fix each one of them somewhere. Where is Chandra, where is Surya, and where is Agni? If you go in that direction, you will miserably fail. You are not supposed to go in that direction. But understand it differently. Now let's ask what is to be understood from this shloka. The question we have to ask is, what will happen if the whole world is pitch dark? Absolutely no light. No source of light whatsoever. Whole world is pitch dark. If the whole world is pitch dark, your two eyes are of no use. A blind man is better than me. Because for him it is already like that. Is it not?
Experience.
If the whole world becomes pitch dark, I am gone. You agree with this statement? Now let's go to the second statement. If you agree with this statement, I want to make a second statement. Second statement is, there is only three sources of light for the whole world. You do whatever you want to do. You bring any amount of science. There are only three sources of light. The first source of light is called sun. Then there are two derived sources out of it. One is called moon, another is called fire. Fire comes only because of the solar system is why we are all here. The shirt that we wear is sun. The air we breathe is sun. The thing that we see is sun, because everything is because of sun. That is what the shloka is saying. The shloka is saying the presiding deity of this faculty called eye is nothing but Surya, Chandra and Agni. That is intended in this shloka. You will miss this point if you read the way we are all taught in the schools. Very analytical thinking. You have to split everything, understand the meaning, and then connect it. No, ancient Indian wisdom is hugely intuitive, metaphorical. Understanding it requires a very different plane. That's why every story looks laughable for the Westerners. Every story, Draupadi is brought into the middle of the court and then they start disrobing it. And then this is my very favorite example. I have told it 100 times. If you bring that story, the first thing that will kick in me is I am a professor of operations management. First question I will ask is, what is the manufacturing lead time for the saree now? Because somebody must roll the saree. Now he will ask, is the saree balanced, capacity balanced? Because the rate at which you are rolling the saree is the rate at which you have to pull it. Otherwise something will happen, bottleneck will come. Correct? These are all the ways you can think if you think analytically. That story is not meant for it. A mind which is trained analytically can think only so much. It's a deep story. The story says, in that story, the good artha is that until Draupadi took her hands off, the message there is, if you think you will solve all your problems, you will be having a lot of trouble. While you put your best foot forward, if you can say that there is a divine force which is solving my problem, your head will become very light, otherwise the head weight will be too much. Honestly, the head weight will be too much and will lead into headaches, finally. That is what is mentioned in that story. We have to read stories like that. We have to read shlokas like that. So here it is such a beautiful expression that it is this Brahman from which Panchabhutas are coming. That is what is being metaphorically told here. The Taittiriya Upanishad, Akasat Vayu, Vayo, Agni, Agnerapa is told differently here. Same idea, but it is told differently. It has taken a metaphorical view of a Brahman. Brahman has eyes which are nothing but the sources of light. Now you can understand, now everything will fall in place. Disha Shrotraha. What does it mean? The faculty called hearing and the ears make sense only because of directions. And that God created that direction for us and created the faculty called ears also. All those are coming through this shloka. It will fall in place. So this same Akashat Vayuhu Vayoragni Agnerapah is told differently here. It takes a so-called Brahman and metaphorically argues how the Brahman is made of. In other words, by saying Brahman is made of all these, it is saying he is the Karana for the Karya. That is also coming now. He is the Karana for all the Karya, which are all Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. All those are coming from him. Tells differently in Mundakopanishad. He says, Tasmat Agnihi Samidaha. Then there is, now all the Upanishads also says, how does that Brahman become you and my and took these Stula Shariras and Sukshma Shariras? That is also explained. With the concept of 5 Agnis. The 5 Agnis are told very explicitly in Chandogya Upanishad. It is told in a very good artha here in Mundakopanishad. So here it says, Tasmad Agnihi Samidaha Yasya Suryaha. The first Agni fire is Surya. That's what it says. Then Soma, that is the second Agni. It's a metaphorical meaning. Second Agni. Third is Parjanya. Why it use the word Agni? Because it sees the whole creation process as an yajna in which an ahuti is done, which creates an offspring. That is the metaphor it has taken. That's why Parjanya is called Agni. In other words, rain is the third Agni. Don't then use your physics and say how can rain can be Agni. Not that. The metaphorism is here different. It looks at it like an yajna. In the yajna there is Agni in which you make a ahuti and something comes out of it. So it says Parjanya is the fourth Agni in which this primordial cause puts this thing. And then Oshadayaha is the fifth Agni. Same thing comes differently here. Oshadayaha, then Prithvi. So everyone is looked at an altar in which something is made as Agni, and then Ahuti is made, something comes out of it, which then becomes Agni. You make another Ahuti on that, Ahuti on that. That is how it is explained. Then Puman, then Purusha, and the Stri. Then Retaha, Sinchati. The final Agni is the seed which the man puts into the womb of the woman. So that's how I get translated. It connects up to that level. So that's how this shloka says. It says Puman Retaha Sinchati Yoshitayam Vanhihi. The word Vanhi has to be used for all the Agni. These are all the 5 Agnis. Now how do you know it? You have to read 3 Vedas and understand the connection. Because in every Veda it takes a different view, and every Upanishad it takes a different view with which it explains the same concept. So I will now show Chandogya, in which this is very explicitly written. It really shows altar. It says what is the spark, what is the Agni, what is the smoke, what is the Spulingaha, the sparks which emanate out of an Agni, what is the Samit, which is a basic. It has taken such kind of a direction. It talks about 5 layers, says the same thing in a different way. So if you read that Upanishad, then this Upanishad will make sense. Otherwise we don't know what to do with this. We have to read together. Because there it talks about how the soul goes and comes back. In that it is all explained in detail. So look at what it's saying. Asovavaloka Gautama. It is a conversation to Gautama. The Rishi is telling this, so Gautama will come again and again. Agnihi tasya aditya eva. So the sun is the first fire. Agnihi tatya, Asolokaha Agnihi. The other world is the fire. Asolokaha Agnihi tasya aditya eva samit. For the Agni you have to put a samit, no? So that is Aditya. It has taken another metaphorical way in which it explains the concept. Okay? Aditya eva samit. Rashmayaha dhumaha. The brightness that comes out of the sun's this thing, that is equivalent to the smoke. Okay? Ahaha archihi. The daytime is the flame. Okay? Chandramaha angaraha. Angaraha are the ember. In the fire there is this ember, no? So it is a metaphorical description. So the moon is the ember. Nakshatrani vispulingaha. It's exactly like a vispulinga. Fire when you do in Diwali time, it all looks like star. It's going all over the place. No? That's why it uses Nakshatrani vispulingaha. So this talks about the altar now. Altar you have everything now. Now you have to put something on that. That is the next sloka. Tasmin, etasmin, agnau, in this Agni, devaha shraddham jughvati. What they put is shraddha. Faith. Faith is what is put into it. Jughvati tasyaha ahutehe. Out of that faith that they put into this Agni, the Soman came, which is the ultimate source of vitality for it to flow through. Somaraja, Sambhavati. So the first fire is described. Now it goes to the second. He says, Parjanyaha Vava Gautamaha Agnihi. The second Agni is Parjanya, which is rain. Because it is the moon which brings the rain in some format. So now it is going to the next layer now. It says, Parjanyaha Vava Gautamaha Agnihi Tasya Vayuhu Eva Samit. So the summit for this so-called yajna that is happening, these are all metaphorical. Okay, don't attach analytical, rational meaning. You will not get the spirit of what is being told. Okay, Vayuhu eva samit, Abram dhumaha, which is the lightning and I think thunder or whatever. Vidyut is there, that is thunder possibly. Vidyut archish, right? Ashanihi, Angaraha, okay? And then Ahridanayoho Vispulinga. So it again explains, the fire, the cloud, then the lightning, the thunder, they are all used as smoke. And because in a fire you need smoke, you need ember, you need this Vispulinga, the sparks coming out. It's a very figurative and metaphorical explanation. That is less important. The second mantra is important. What does it say? It says Tasmin etasmin agno devaha somam rajanam juhvati. There they gave Shraddha as the ahuti. Here they gave Soman as the ahuti. Hasya ahutehe varsham sambhavati. So the soul passes through that medium and gets into the rain. Actually, it explains how the soul actually finds its way back. It comes through rain, it gets into the dhanyas, that is eaten by the potential father, and his retas, his vitality, and the mother, and the vitality increases. That's how the whole process is explained. The soul, if it is not able to match, it passes out of I have read somewhere, it passes through the stool. Unless it finds a match, it will not click, it will come out. Again it will go through this process. It really searches for that and reaches. So the soul has now gone into the next level, which is rain now. It has gotten into the Karana Sharira has gotten into the rain now. Second Agni is that. Then Prithvi Vava Gautamaha Agnihi Tasyaha. The third altar is, the Agni is the earth. Because the water now will come to the earth. Eventually I have to now be born here. So it has now landed. So this is altar now. Okay, Agni here. Prithvi vava Gautama Agnistasya Samvatsaraha eva Samit Akasha. This is very metaphorical, so I will not explain too much of that. Right? Dhumo Ratrihi Archihi Dishaha Angaraha Avantara Dishaha Vispulingaha, the interspace or the sparks and so on. Anyway, Tasmin Yetasmin Agno Devaha Varsham Juhvati. They offer this rain as this thing, and out of that what comes? Annam Sambhavati. When you put something in the ahuti, you get a pala out of it. That is the metaphor. So you put water, you get anna. That's why he said adbhya prithvi prithvyam oshadayah. That is coming in different way here. It's coming in a different way here. So now you get the food. That is this thing. Then it says Purushaho Vava. So the next altar where this ahuti must happen is human being. Right? So Purushaha Vava Gautamo Agnistasya Vakeva Samit Pranaha Dhumaha Jikhva Archihi Chakshuhu Angaraha Shrotram Vispulingaha. All those are there. Tasmin Yetasmin Agno Devaha Annam Juhvati. The samit they give is, the ahuti they give is annam, and that manifests, and what you get out of it is vitality. For both the man and the woman. So that is what is coming. So this is the next Agni, fourth Agni, which manifests itself as vitality. In the next it talks about the procreation process as the fifth Agni, in which the soul finally finds an expression. So it connects the whole thing in a different way. What is written in one line in Mundaka Upanishad comes in a very different way here. Tasmin yetasmin agno devaha reto juhvati. The seed is deposited in the womb, right? And ahutehe garbham sambhavati. That's how the soul finally finds its expression and comes out. This is all explained in Chandogya. So 5 Agnis, the metaphor is an ahuti, samit, you give something and then you get the phala out of that. So that is being explained. So the same idea, Taittiriya says differently, Mundaka says differently, Chandogya says differently. But what is most important is it says that Brahman is the Karana. That is what is common to all these threads. They have taken different ways by which they have explained the whole thing. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita, the charm of Bhagavad Gita is all these are told in a nutshell so beautifully. Here so much of explanation is there. That's the charm of Bhagavad Gita. All Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, every ideas are so nicely put in. Look at this sloka, he just said everything. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyat anna sambhavah yajñat bhavati parjanyah yajña karma samudbhavah. Finished. Simply it has all Chandogya and Mundaka and Taittiriya has been put so nicely into a beautiful sloka. It says, food creates vitality, food happens because of rain, rain happens because of yajna, yajna happens because of good karma. They are all connected. In a very nutshell, it brings the same idea in a different way, and it talks about how this whole relationship is painted. If you read all the Upanishads and read this sloka will mean all these. They are all related to one another.
Actually, after every chapter it is said, no, Brahma Sutra, Upanishads, you will have the Saramsa.
Yes. That's why in Prasthanatraya, see, Prasthana means, the word Prasthana means starting to go. When you go for, when we write Muhurta, we can't go, we keep Prasthana, we say, right? Prasthayati means he is ready to go. So these texts are called Prasthanatraya. Why? We have to, we are ready to go and hit the final jackpot. You want to know the Jiva, Ishvara Aikya Bhava. That's why they are called Prasthanatraya. So the 3 Prasthanas, Trayas, included Brahma Sutra, which is very cryptic, 550 sutras. You have to sit with a guru and read that 550 sutras over a few years. Because each sutra needs enormous explanation. Atato, Brahma Jignasa requires at least about 5 hours of reading to find out what it is. Right? Janmadhya Yonihi, second sutra. I think it requires a lot of time to understand because they are all by nature very cryptic. Then comes Upanishads, Dasha Upanishads, because they also show all that. Then they put Bhagavad Gita. That is the charm of Bhagavad Gita. All these are so nicely folded into Bhagavad Gita. If we understand Bhagavad Gita, we will be easily be able to understand the larger principles anyway. So this is a Srishti Prakriya which we are going through. The Upanishad is saying, how do I say Satyam Jnanam Anantam? I will show you by saying the root cause of everything multiplicity that you see is from the 5 great elements. The 5 great elements manifested from me, right? Now the Upanishad is descending to another level. It says, I have now shown that 5 great elements explains all these manifestation, if you know Karya and Karana. Now I will come to your level. If you are ready to reconcile to this, now you will still have problems of reconciling. You see differences, so it now wants to go to the next level. That's why it starts. It says, Savayeva Purushaha Anna Rasamayaha. So here Purusha again means a physical body. Because only a physical body can be Anna Rasa, Rasamaya. Right? See, Maya is Maya Pratyaya. It is, nothing but that. It is made of that. It's called Maya Pratyaya in Sanskrita. Rasa is actually subtle, distilled, pure. You can take 1 liter of milk, and the rasa of that is a little bit of butter or a little bit of koa or something. That's the rasa. So it says Anna Rasa Maya. So this physical body is nothing but all your food finally becomes your body. In Chandogya again there are some nice, all these are mutually supporting kind of Upanishads. About food there are some things in Chandogya again. But anyway, here it says Yeshaha Purushaha Anna Rasamayaha. He is nothing but the distilled form of food. That's why the food what we eat is very important. It's not only, here it talks about the physical sarira and then it will slowly get in. In Chandogya it says it affects your frame of mind, your mental disposition, everything is a function of food. Chandogya says that. So anyway, here it says Sava Yesha Purusho Narasamayaha, and then it says Tasya Idameva Shiraha, Ayam Dakshinav Pakshaha, Ayam Uttarav Pakshaha. See, Idam, Iyam, Ayam are all touching distance. So it wants to point to your own and say that Brahman is all this. This is what is all here. It is the right hand side, this is the left hand side, this is the top, this is the bottom. Everything is that. So it wants to bring the argument close to you now. It wants to take it really close to you now. First it talked about the 5 great elements with which you try to understand the commonality in the world. Now you think about it. I will bring the argument to yourself now. So the journey has started now. The Shruti is now moving to the next level. That's why he says, Tasya idameva shiraha, Ayam dakshinav pakshaha, Ayam uttarav pakshaha, Ayam atma, idam pucham pratishta. This is the pucham, the back portion. Pratishta, that is a substratum. Tatapi yeshaha shlokaha bhavati. The next shloka actually has that. Well, let us see that in detail. So from the Pancha Kosha Vivarana, the Srishti Prakriya at a Anda level, it is now moving. No, I don't have we'll finish it. At the Anda level, it has now gone to the Pinda level. It is getting us there. So the next 5 Anuvakas, this is the start of the second Anuvaka. The next 5 Anuvakas are showing us who am I in the 5-layered context. It is preparing us for that. Tat api eshaha shlokaha bhavati. All these shlokas will now show you this. It will bring you very near to your point of discussion, is what Shruti says. So we will see this Pancha Kosha that we have. From the Pancha Bhuta, we have now, Shruti is taking us to the Pancha Kosha. Because that is the only way you can explain the, Pinda now. For Anda and Pancha Kosha, Pancha Bhuta is enough. For the Pinda, Panchabhuta alone is not enough. So it now puts another resolution now. It's called Panchakosha Vivaranam. That's what the Anuvakas 2 to 6 are, which we will see from the next class. Thank you.